Hello and welcome to my player housing Warband home in World of Warcraft. This is on the Alliance side, and the concept here is to have a space for all of my toons to notionally live together, if that were a thing that were even possible. Our hostess today, showing you around, is Fafo, a marksman hunter. She is modeling her Wasteland Weekend Transmog. At least that's what I've dubbed it. Has elements of the Wastelander set and random other elements incorporated. And I think it's pretty cool, but we're not here to talk about her transmog. So the entryway is set up with useful goods for travelers to take with them on their way out, and a pair of benches for if you have to get off your muddy boots or whatever, and you can actually sit on the benches. There's also the Hearthlight Armillary, which will temporarily reduce the lighting levels, but they won't stay at whatever you set them, I've found, and just go to default after a few minutes. Hopefully they fixed that. I haven't found out. So, the main room is a large square room, and I refer to this space as the Village for fairly obvious reasons. It is a series of individual cottages for different alts that reflect their professions, experiences in the game, and personality. The centerpiece is an overgrown wildhammer fountain that has been somewhat enlarged, merged with a monument from the Paladin Order Hall in Legion, and which is a tribute to the Fallen, I think it's called. And it actually works rather well. The color palettes are pretty complementary, and makes a nice focal point for the room. So the cottages, starting on the right and working our way around, is a stone cottage. And what I'm using here are Stormwind roofed wagons as the basis for these, blown up to 200% and sunk into the walls, and then with walls filled in. And that's turned out to be one of the best ways to do it. I've done a lot of experimenting. I've also used some gazebos here and there, but honestly these work better. So this is the quarters of my main and my first ever toon, a human warrior. And he has, of course, his Order Hall banner on the wall, and just a few odds and ends to keep him occupied when he's in here and not asleep. You're going to be seeing a lot of that Ironforge wardrobe because I like it and it scales well to a variety of different toons. And unlike a lot of the human-inspired furniture, it doesn't look crappy. And of course, in the corner, there's a little something in case things get rowdy in the commons. But we'll just ignore that. As you can see, the water feature wraps around the fountain and one of the cottages. We'll get to that later. Here is another cottage. Now you can see I've scaled the doors down and recolored this one green as a sort of obscure reference to The Hobbit, because the occupant is in fact a gnome. And this is the gnome priest's quarters. Everything is gnome scaled. The bed is, since these large structural beams are useful as an economy measure when walling these things in if they're scaled up, I've decided to utilize that as a feature rather than a flaw, and extend it into a platform for the bed with a shelf. And you can see the tall bookcase, iron reinforced bookcase, whatever it's called, when properly scaled, actually makes a pretty good ladder for accessing spaces like this. And overall, you're going to hear the word a lot, cozy, if I'm not careful, but it's a nice little space suited to the young priest. So, to the right is a heavily reinforced but ornate door that leads to the labs, and we'll get back to that. To the left is the boardwalk, which skirts the end of this side of the pond. And ahead, this cottage is occupied by a void elf rogue. And she's rather petite, especially compared to the 7-foot-tall night elves. So she also has the platform bed, utilizing the oversized beam as a feature, with the little staircase, which is functional. Over here, there's a washstand and the apothecary stuff, so she can make all her assorted poisons. And a Gilnan stocks, and there's a story behind that. Coming across the boardwalk, we have a canoe placed in the pond, just because, why not? And a Murloc hovel, or hut, enlarged somewhat and set up as a seating space with some fishing rods for those so inclined. Good luck fishing in the carpets of the pond. And last we come to one of the gazebo-based houses. This is for my hunter main, who is a dwarf. And again, the doors are scaled so that they are not insanely large, as Blizzard would have them. Now the windows, the Goldshire windows, it was a revelation to discover that they are translucent from this side. And I completely revamped this build to accommodate them. So he has a stone bed, because of course that's a good idea. Dwarves, go figure. Nice little seating area with a rustic theme. Replica of the Order Hall altar. And, a pretty basic space, but, nice and comfortable. A little bit of decoration on the wall. And these Rookmar statues make a nice focal lighting point that is both functional and interesting looking. I think they're really quite neat. You get those from the Arakoa quests in Warlords of Draenor. To the left is the Pandaren monk's cottage with the smoking fish altar out front. They seem to have that. The monks seem to use that in place of a banner for their order hall. Going inside, we have some tools of the trade for the monk. A big fat pillow for his big fat bare butt, which is actually set up so that it can be sat on. Although this toon sits in it rather than on it. The Ironforge wardrobe has a surprisingly Pandaren vibe to it in the right setting. Works out well in here, and of course the wise Pandaren's bed. And a few odds and ends, including a miniature altar and a miniature rickshaw as sort of a reminder of home. Moving around the edge of the village, we come to another gnome's cottage. And this one is a rogue also. Slightly different construction, so she doesn't have the platform bed that the others do. But the bed and all the furniture are scaled to the gnome. The Goldshire wardrobe makes a nice change from the Ironforge wardrobe. And she has her little space here to do her apothecary work, some research materials. A little incense to maybe help deal with the smell of the poisons when she's brewing them. In between this cottage and the next, there is a small social space with cushions that you can sit on for socializing, and a keg of beverages and some glasses. Little chair for those disinclined to sit on the beams. And in here is another gnome cottage. This one a gnome hunter. And a very rustic vibe to it. I think suits a hunter. hunterly decorations, a full wall of windows. And behind the couch is a sleeping spot with a sleeping bag in case he has an overnight visitor of similar stature, and using the beam as a desk also. Between this cottage and the next is the entrance to the Night Elf ghetto. Ghetto in the sense of a segregated space rather than as a reference to urban decay. We'll get to that. And this trellis is really cool. I had no idea. I bought it for the points, but it actually has goldfish in it, which I think is super cool. And this cottage, based on a gazebo, belongs to a Draenei mage. And a few things added to the bookshelf. Some little extra stuff. Her desk and working space set up over here, with the Arakoa Mage's shelf holding reference materials. And of course, no Draenei's quarters would be complete without the beloved Alec plushie and a miniature representation of a Naru. There's also this Draenei chest, which I have not done anything with yet. It has the crappy looking 2D gold in it, which just is awful. And usually I cover that over with books and sundries and things that someone might store in a chest. But I haven't got to that yet, and I'm running up against the limits of my decor budget here, so, well, we'll deal with that at the next level. She also has a miniature of the altar, fully functional on the desk. Such a cool piece. And last but not least is Norman the Gnome Mage's cottage, which was my first scratch-built cottage, made out of very thick, heavy stone with stout barred windows, because with his hobbies, the other members of the Warband prefer him to be behind thick stone walls and solid gratings. And of course the heavily reinforced door, little seating area out here. And inside, it is quite busy. We have the miniaturized version of the Suramar Library, the Guild Hall, or the Class Hall altar, an energy crate and energy barrel from the Ethereals, little seating area behind the door, nice for relaxing, workstation with something bubbling on the burner. I don't know what that device is, and I'm afraid to find out, so we'll just move on. The bed, of course, and wardrobe are scaled to gnome size, and he has a lovely bathing area, which with the Calderai or the Calderai wash basin, which is big enough to be a nice tub for a gnome. So that is it for the individual cottages in the village. Now, as for other living accommodations, the Night Elves, as mentioned, have their own space over here. And it is a night room, so it gives the appearance of being out of doors. Night Elves, night room, makes sense. There are some floaty balls around to light the place, because it gets rather dim if you don't, and the large temple brazier enlarged and sunk into the center as a sort of centerpiece. Nice water feature off to the side. And here is a barrow-style accommodation, which is this toon's home. And it is quite a compact little space, but it has everything the toon needs, including this pretty nice little sleeping nook, which was actually a happy accident as I was putting things together. I saw the rocks were landing and thought, that could work. And some reading material, pillows for relaxing, little snack off to the side, storage for clothing and such, odds and ends. And the bench with the back is made from 2 benches. 2 Belemeth, I think they're Belemeth benches. And it works out rather nicely. Now, these tents are Belemeth Crafters tents, or from Valshara or something. I think, well, anyway, it doesn't really matter. These are actually scaled down because in their standard form they are enormous. But these are like 80% or a little less. The first one belongs to our young druid. I haven't found a lot of druid-specific decor that I have access to yet. So this will be expanded on and maybe more druid-themed in the future. And then there's the Death Knight's quarters. And the Death Knight has rejected the whole edgelord death and decay aesthetic espoused by so many Death Knights. She finds it unnecessary, ugly, and kind of stupid. So she has gone with a much more balanced overall elfin motif, except for her Order Hall banner. Have to keep our roots in mind. And a blood elf bed, Belemeth table and benches, and of course reading material, because my toons are a studious lot. And the privacy screen afford a little privacy. We're all elves here. We only need so much privacy. The Demon Hunter is using a bookshelf, partly as a visual screen for privacy, and has just a nice, comfortable setup. With the Legion defeated, don't really need to adhere to the austere aesthetic that they originally held to. And a little tribute there to the whole Demon Hunter thing. Weapons rack of Eldar weapons and a glaive. And that is it for the Night Elf quarters. And as budget increases, I'll do a little bit more in here to blend things in, because I'm finding that raw doorway just floating there in space kind of sucks. So, going straight across, we're going to come to the lab, which is where the engineers and mages make mischief. But before we get there, we're going to stop by the eating hall and library. And it's exactly what it sounds like. There is room to pull out more tables if we ever have a feast in here. And again, with the Order Hall banners for all the toons. There is, of course, a coffee bar because we are us. And nicely set up. Got some extra bags of coffee. They're not likely to run out. The Dalaran coffee grinder, some steaming mugs, and the Dalaran espresso machine. And I had to tell you, that is reduced, I believe, to 20%, because the Dalaran espresso machine is ludicrously huge. It's 8 feet tall to scale in-game at its standard 100%. So it's just nuts. And of course, there is a single burner stove for heating up water for the coffee press. Back here we have some storage for the kitchen. And mid-watch rations for toons eating between meals. Pretty nice setup for that. A couple of benches to sit on while you snack. And of course the kitchen with more supplies. The counter all ready for setting up cooking dinner. And there is a roast in the Drakthir oven. And a few additions to the standard Kaldarai cooking to chef's table, I think they call it. And this thing, it had to be scaled down like most things, because this toon is, according to WoW, 7 feet tall, and the counter was too big for her. Okay, WoW, you do you. Dried corn on the wall for various purposes. I guess there's popcorn fans in the bunch. And then going upstairs is the library. Now these stairways, a lot of WoW's decor, of Blizzard's decor, is ludicrously oversized. These stairways are ludicrously oversized compared to that standard. So I thought it best to utilize them by putting the library on the landings. And of course the mandatory floating books, which are scaled down to 50%, because I don't fancy having books the size of desks orbiting overhead. Up on the second landing is a more social seating area, again with the bookshelves, and I use the hidden door bookshelves because, well, the decor budget is limited, and it saves a lot of the decor budget to have preloaded shelves. And a last corner seating area with bookshelves, and then a more communal seating area over here with a Dranaic bookshelf and coffee table with the very ornate, very large dwarven book. And these couches, which are quite big, are set up for a single person to sit right in the center of them, which I think is a little bit ludicrous. I'm using that word a lot too when I talk about Blizzard. But this one is set up to seat 3. I don't know when there would ever be occasion to do so, but if there is, you can. We have the Order Hall books from the Hunter's Hall and Mage Hall. And a nice seating area with couches. Tea set. And again, around the walls are the Order Hall banners for all the various toons of the Warband. Normally, you could have a door here leading to another space, but I've elected not to because budget limitations on the decor budget. Now, when I hit level 7 and the decor budget is expanded dramatically, I may add another space here, or I may not. But I will be elaborating on a lot of the interior fitments here and adding in new features. So, down the stairs and out, we're going at last to the lab. And it will rapidly become obvious that the boys and girls who utilize the lab do not think mad scientist is an insult in any way. And they are a curious bunch. So, through the door, we have a narrow hallway lined with reference materials. And by compressing the walls of the closet that connects these two spaces in, that gives me room for things like the wagons that the cottages are made out of to clip through the walls without being visible. Off to the left is the engineering space. Off to the right, both engineering and mages have an interest in this ethereal technology. You can see that they are charging some empty power barrels with the energy collector. And study area here. Various artifacts. This large device on the wall that is just simply called a device. We don't know what it is, but it does that when you click on it. And there is once again the Mage Order Hall altar. And what's interesting, what I found really cool about this, is that when you pick it up and look at it from the bottom, all of those pieces are actually in there and come out, which is super cool. Okay, I don't know what happened here, but that's not cool. I think I may have to have a word with them about that poor griffin. We have the mage's working area over here, and the centerpiece of this back wall is this really cool mosaic. It's normally set up to be on the floor, but it makes a great wall ornament. even though it had to be scaled down to fit the space. Got our planning table here, and various artifacts of the order hall and whatever that thing is floating there. Really, guys? It's so attractive. Anyway, a lot of floating things in here. Tapestries, books, lamps. They're just showing off. And nice little working space. A few odds and ends on the shelf in addition to the reference materials. That is the large ironforged bookshelf. Quite an attractive piece, really. And that is it for the lab. Oh, except for... I forgot this whole side. It is not it for the lab. So here is a seating area where they can sit and plan their next experiments. And then we have the truck. Now, the most obvious question other than why is, how are they getting it out of here? I have no idea. So, obviously it is idling in neutral, the transmission not engaged. And this apparently runs on a combination of burning cinder bromide, steam, and ethereal power sources. It seems overly complicated, but what do I know? I'm not an engineer or a mage. Certainly looks comfortable. And it has a couple of features that you can activate. Unfortunately, they only remain active for a few seconds at a time. Probably to save on the graphic load on the servers. But it is kind of a shame that it can't sit there idling like that. I am really looking forward to if they manage to implement a feature where you can clip assemblies like this and move them in a piece, because I would like to move it. Maybe copy and paste one into the yard if they ever allow lights out there. And then of course we have our planning area. That looks innocuous enough. I do not trust that. Few odd spare parts lying around. And again, this will be expanded as the budget is increased and more engineering stuff becomes available to me. Note the incredibly thick reinforced door. Not a bad idea with that crew at work in there. Blast containment. And of course it opens inward so that a blast will push it into the door frame and not blow out and annihilate the entire village. So, that is it. This is the Alliance side house. There is a separate Horde side house, which has a completely different use concept. And I'll doubtless be doing a video about that at some point. But I hope you've enjoyed the tour. And that's it for this time. I hope this finds you well. Stay safe and take care.